Alright, so picture this, Luka Doncic just completely embarrassed Dennis Schroder, and the entire basketball world is buzzing about what went down. After months of back-and-forth trash talk since December, Schroder walked into that hallway, thinking he was about to get his moment with Luka. That turned out to be the worst decision he could have made, because what he didn't know was that Luka wasn't rolling solo. The guys who had his back weren't just random friends or security either. These are people the entire league knows about for one specific reason. And when you find out what really happened next, this whole story takes a completely different turn.
Luka!
Look, this wasn't some heat-of-the-moment thing that just got out of hand. This was about two guys who exist in totally different universes in the NBA, but somehow kept crossing paths. The gap between where they stand is exactly what made everything blow up like it did. Dennis has always carried himself with this chip on his shoulder. He entered the league as this quick, scrappy guard who was convinced he belonged at the top, and honestly, he did build a solid career for himself. The guy has been a starter, came off the bench in big moments, and even played important minutes when the playoffs rolled around. But here's the thing about his journey. It's been all over the place. From Atlanta to Oklahoma City, then Los Angeles, Boston, Houston, back to LA again, then Toronto, Brooklyn, Golden State, Detroit, and now Sacramento. That's way too many stops in way too short a time.
Yeah, I don't think there was an attempt. There was a successful, I don't know if it's open hand, but he got to Luka Doncic. And to be honest with you, you don't get 3 games for like running around in a hallway. That's not what you get 3 games for.
When you're constantly moving like that, you never really get to plant roots or make a lasting mark anywhere. Every team becomes a tryout. Every game feels like you're fighting for your life. It makes sense why he plays like someone who's always trying to prove he deserves to be in rooms he keeps getting invited to, but never really owns. Fans have picked up on it too, which is why that journeyman label stuck to him.
Here at 5, we're learning Nikola Jokic's brother has been criminally charged in that brawl at a Nuggets game back in April. Strahinja Jokic is being charged with assault in the 3rd degree, knowingly, reckless bodily injury too. According to court documents, Jokic said he felt he did nothing wrong because he was, quote, defending an older man that he's known for a long time.
The issue is that his confidence often writes checks his game can't cash. Dennis talks like he's some untouchable superstar, but his numbers have always been in that good but replaceable zone. He's fast, he's annoying to play against, and he competes hard, but he's never been dominant. He's never been the guy a championship team builds around or someone who changes the direction of a franchise. Yet he trash talks like he has been, and that mismatch is where things get messy.
Then they won, and Kevin Durant treat high IQ and entertainment. For me, that's just being weak.
We saw this play out with Kevin Durant too. Dennis took things way too personally in international competition, and then tried to carry that same energy into NBA games. You've seen how teammates and opponents talk about him, always bringing unnecessary drama into situations that could have stayed calm.
When you start talking about the NBA, people forget these are grown men. People have kids.
Now flip that and look at Luka Doncic, and the contrast is insane. Luka walked into this league as a European teenager with massive hype, tons of confidence, and this old-school style that immediately made grown men look foolish. From day one, players were trying to test him. They pressed him constantly, talked trash, tried to rough him up physically. And almost every single time, Luka handled it the same way. He'd smile, cook whoever was guarding him, and talk right back without ever letting it affect his performance. Luka's trash talk hits different because he doesn't need to convince anybody of anything. He waits until he's already destroying you, then he says something that cuts exactly where it's supposed to. That's what makes it stick, and that's what drives people absolutely crazy. Plus, he doesn't look like someone you can push around. He's bigger than most people think, plays through contact, and when games get physical, he usually gets better instead of worse. That calm confidence is what really gets under people's skin, especially guys who are already frustrated with their situation. Guys exactly like Dennis. That's where their whole beef really started. At the time, it just looked like two competitive players going at each other. But when you understand their backgrounds, it was obvious this was never going to stay between the lines. One guy is used to getting tested and responding with excellence. The other is used to fighting for respect that never seems to last. When those two approaches crash into each other, things don't just cool down on their own. So we get to December 28th of last year, and this was basically a disaster waiting to happen. Lakers against the Kings, and Luka Doncic put on an absolute clinic. 34 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, knocked down 5 threes, picked some pockets, and controlled every single moment in that building. Meanwhile, Dennis was out there with 11 points, 7 assists, and a negative plus-minus, looking like he was upset the scoreboard wasn't showing what he wanted it to show, which is exactly the kind of energy we've come to expect from him. But the numbers only tell part of the story. The real drama was in how everything felt. After watching Luka dominate like that, Schroder made what might be the most foolish decision possible. He walked right up to Luka and told him he was going to beat him up. The problem is, he forgot exactly who he was dealing with. Right there in the middle of the third quarter, Luka hit Dennis with a line that made every NBA fan watching completely lose their minds. This wasn't just Luka being playful either. This was straight-up psychological warfare. You have to remember that years back, when Dennis was with the Lakers, he supposedly had a shot at a 4-year, $84 million extension, a real deal, that would have locked him in as their main point guard. Solid role, serious money, the complete package. But he passed on it. Maybe he thought something better was coming. Maybe he wanted to chase a different opportunity. Whatever the reason, he walked away from it. Fast forward to December of last year, and Dennis is stuck on the Kings, playing for a team that's going nowhere, miles away from where he could have been, while Luka's dropping 34 points like it's a warm-up. And then, like that wasn't brutal enough already, according to professional lip readers who broke down the footage, Luka leaned in close and delivered this message. Luka basically dared him to do something about it. That's pure step up or shut up energy. And the wild part is this all happened while Luka was actively winning the game. You could see Dennis getting more and more frustrated. Every time Luka touched the ball, he was trying to get inside his head, but it wasn't working at all. Here's the thing though, if this had actually turned into a real fight right there on the court, it would have been a complete nightmare for Dennis. Luka stands 6'7", built like he can handle contact, while Dennis is 6 feet flat. There's no reality where Dennis comes out of that situation looking good. Luka has been dealing with bigger, stronger defenders his entire career. This would have been David versus Goliath, except Dennis isn't really David and Luka definitely is Goliath. Meanwhile, the Kings were falling apart. They were sitting at 8-24 at this point, while the Lakers were trying to bounce back from their own rough stretch. And here's something most people completely miss. Word is that the Jokic brothers, Schroder and Nemanja, were in LA that night to support Luka, who's tight with their brother Nikola. By the time the final buzzer hit, the scoreboard showed the Lakers had blown out the Kings completely. This whole game was like a bomb waiting to go off. And the second that buzzer sounded, everything was about to explode. That set up perfectly for what came next. Because Dennis couldn't just let it go. He had to say something, had to make some kind of statement. But the universe, in the form of Luka and those Jokic brothers, had completely different plans. You thought all the drama was over when the game ended. That was just the warm-up act. About 40 minutes after the Kings' locker room cleared out, Dennis made what has to rank among the dumbest moves in his entire career. This man was walking down the hallway, still heated from getting embarrassed, clearly thinking he was going to have some one-on-one conversation with Luka Doncic. According to multiple people who were there, Dennis didn't hold anything back with his words. He reportedly told Luka something like, "You can't call me names on the court and think everything's cool once we're off it." Translation: I'm not letting you run your mouth in front of 20,000 people and just walk away like nothing happened. You could feel the ego pouring out of every single word. Now, here's where things get interesting. The media mostly reported this as Dennis trying to hit Doncic. That's what the NBA officially said happened, and he ended up with a 3-game suspension and almost $300,000 in fines. And most fans figured that was the end of it. But that's only the tiny piece the NBA wants everyone to know about. This wasn't just some guy being angry in a hallway. Dennis actually made his move, and that's when everything got absolutely wild. Enter the real stars of the night. According to insider reports and people who saw it happen, Schroder and Nemanja Jokic, Nikola's older brothers, stepped into the picture.
Let's pause for a second here.
Anyone who knows anything about the Jokic brothers understands they don't mess around. Their reputation speaks for itself, especially when it comes to how they've always protected Nikola in public. The scene in that hallway, according to people who were there, was incredible because Dennis was all fired up and aggressive, thinking he was going to confront Luka and walk away like some kind of hero. Then Struninja and Nemenja moved in. Picture this: two serious Balkan brothers, built, solid, intimidating, ready to back up their brother's friend, moving like a wall. Dennis figured out real quick that this wasn't going to be one-on-one anymore. People who saw it said the situation got intense fast, and then within seconds, Dennis was forced to back down completely. The hallway that was supposed to be where Schroder showed some dominance over Luka suddenly became the place where he got handled and had to retreat. That's actually the word people who were there used to describe it. The brothers handled the situation so smoothly that there's even talk about Luka keeping the Jokic brothers around as personal security. Because honestly, after seeing how fast they shut Dennis down, who wouldn't want that kind of backup? DeAndre Ayton and Arena Security were there too, trying to keep things from getting bloody. Ayton reportedly got between both sides, acting like a barrier, while the Jokic brothers positioned themselves to make sure Dennis couldn't just charge at Luka. Security did their job, but the people who were there made it clear that the real moment was watching how quickly the Jokic brothers controlled everything. Now let's talk about how the NBA handled their punishment, because something didn't add up. Dennis got 3 games suspended and fined roughly $291,000. But plenty of NBA analysts pointed out that something was off, because usually a suspension that long means there was actual contact or serious intent to harm, not just swinging and missing. This was all the confirmation people needed to believe those eyewitness accounts, because it was clear the league was trying to protect Dennis's reputation publicly while also quietly admitting he actually took a shot at Luka. And Dennis made it even worse for himself right after the league announced their decision. He commented laughing emojis under their official post. That was him laughing at how the league called it just an attempt. That gave everyone all the proof they needed that what really went down was way more than just an attempt. So while the league announced the suspension, most people only saw the surface-level story. Schroder tried to hit Luka, got suspended for 3 games. Case closed. But behind the scenes, according to people in the know, the real story was even more embarrassing for Schroder's pride. He went to confront someone mid-season, thinking he could handle the situation, and got completely shut down. Speaking of those Jokic brothers, you might know Nikola as the quiet, humble MVP. But the guys in his corner? That's a totally different kind of energy. You need to understand that Struninja and Nemenja aren't just some random guys trying to act tough or bluff their way through situations. These are legitimate Balkan enforcers, and they have the track record to prove it. Let's start with Struninja. This guy has a documented history that screams, "Don't mess with people I care about." If you want to see what I mean, look at what happened in April of last year during Game 2 of a Nuggets playoff matchup against the Lakers. Someone apparently said something disrespectful to him, just a regular fan trying to talk trash. Next thing anyone knew, Struninja was literally climbing over rows of seats like he's in some action movie. And then boom, punched the guy right in the face. I'm talking concussion, cuts, deviated septum, the whole thing. This guy is legitimately dangerous. Of course, the video went viral immediately, and yeah, he got charged with 3rd-degree assault, and there was a restraining order for the victim. Eventually, in October of last year, he pleaded guilty to lesser charges, trespassing, and disorderly conduct, and got 1-year probation. But that's exactly the mentality he brought to that hallway confrontation with Schroder and Luka. Now add Nemanja into the equation. He's not as flashy as Struninja, so he doesn't get the viral moments, but make no mistake, these two operate as a team. They protect Nikola completely, and if you cross Nikola, you're basically crossing the entire family. Perfect example happened in 2021 during a game between the Nuggets and the Heat. Jokic had issues with Markieff Morris. A little scuffle broke out. Both players got ejected, but here's what really shows you who these guys are. Struninja and Nemenja didn't just let it slide, even though they weren't on social media before that incident. They went online, created accounts, and called out the Morris twins directly. The message was crystal clear: if you're messing with Nikola, you're messing with us too. The NBA world took notice. The Morris twins even joked on a podcast about potentially boxing them, but they were serious enough to give respect to the brothers' reputation, their presence, and their history of never backing down. That's how they're viewed in NBA circles. People understand you don't casually get into it with the Jokic brothers. Are they professional MMA fighters? No, not officially. But don't get confused. These guys train, lift, and handle business enough that their physical presence is genuinely intimidating. In some underground circles, they actually are martial arts competitors. That's why that night, Schroder learned an important lesson about choosing your battles wisely. If DeAndre Ayton hadn't been there to get between both sides, that situation could have ended really badly for Dennis. Let's be real, Dennis Schroder's reputation in the NBA has always been one of those love him or laugh at him situations. But after that Luka hallway incident, everything people quietly wondered about him finally got dragged right to spotlight. This is where we really start peeling back who Dennis is, how people see him, and why this hallway moment wasn't some random embarrassment, but the latest chapter in a bigger pattern that's been building for years. When you're talking about someone whose personality on and off the court gets people worked up, you eventually land on one major talked about beef: Schroder versus Kevin Durant. It started after the 2024 Paris Olympics, when Schroder opened his mouth about the differences between European basketball and the NBA, saying European basketball is pure IQ basketball, not all about entertainment like in the US. That comment alone got people talking, because it's not every day you hear someone in the NBA basically trash the entire league and then compare it to his national team's success. So Kevin Durant, who's a 14-time All-Star, MVP, Olympic gold medalist, and one of the biggest names in the sport, posted a picture with Team USA's gold medal captioned "Entertainment" and IQ after winning the tournament. That post didn't explicitly mention Schroder, but NBA Twitter immediately connected it to him because the timing and wording was too perfect. Schroder didn't just let that slide either. He went on his Twitch stream and called KD weak as a person, going after Durant's character instead of just letting things cool down or playing it smart. That line instantly gave fans something to latch onto, because why would you try to go at one of the biggest names in the sport? A regular player who's been in the league for over a decade doesn't pick a liga fight with Kevin Durant, especially when he doesn't have a superstar resume himself. That's not confidence. That's just unnecessary ego talking. The same ego that led him to challenge Luka Doncic with how Luka's playing right now and his impact on the game. Even LeBron James wouldn't come at him that way. But the Durant beef is just one piece of a bigger puzzle. The main reason people look at Schroder sideways is his career path, the classic NBA journeyman story. Dennis has been bouncing around the NBA like he's on some never-ending road trip. He started with the Hawks in 2013, 5 solid seasons where he did his thing, but was never really the guy a franchise builds around. In 2018, he went to the Thunder, trying to prove he could actually run a team. The Lakers came calling in 2020, and suddenly the spotlight was on him. From there, he moved to the Celtics in 2021, then to the Rockets in 2022, and back to the Lakers later that same season. At that point, it was like, damn, can this guy catch a break? Then came the Raptors in 2023, the Nets in 2024, Golden State in 2024-25, and now the Kings, 10 teams in 12 years. Every single stop feels like an audition. You can practically feel the pressure on him, like he's always trying to prove he belongs somewhere. Look, Dennis's NBA story isn't about dominance or building a legacy. It's about constant movement. He's basically the league's human trade asset. Fans joke that he's always the guy getting shipped out or packaged in deals, never the cornerstone a team actually builds around. It gets wild when you remember that Dennis himself once called the trade deadline modern slavery, saying players have no choice about where they play. He literally said that, and then it kept happening to him over and over again. It's like he was living out his own complaint. The thing is, the NBA doesn't love players who act like alpha dogs but don't have the star resume to back it up. Schroder has never been all NBA. He's never carried a team deep into the playoffs. Even with decent stats, people see him more as the energy and hustle guy rather than a superstar. However, internationally, Dennis is straight up a hero. In Germany and across Europe, he's the man, the captain of the national team. But in the NBA, he's just another decent player. That's why fans reacted the way they did to this whole situation. It wasn't just about that night, it was about everything he represents. The internet absolutely lost it when the news broke. NBA Twitter was going crazy. But it wasn't even just fans. NBA players had to weigh in too. Iman Shumpert talked about how disrespectful it was for Schroder to think he was just going to walk up to Luka like that and leave without consequences. Fans even did side-by-side comparisons with past incidents, because this isn't the first time we've had drama like this. Remember Ron Artest and the Malice at the Palace chaos? Rasheed Wallace throwing shade in locker rooms, even Draymond Green getting into it with teammates and opponents off the court? The league has a long history of players letting off steam, but each of those guys had the numbers and impact to back it up. That's the difference between Schroder and those players. So yeah, that's the complete chaos in a nutshell. Schroder thought he could step into that hallway and mess with Luka, but he got straight up handled. This wasn't just some random bad night either. This was years of tension finally crashing into one hallway moment. So tell me, if you were in that hallway that night, who would you have sided with and why?